Greetings! Welcome to the devlog for Alpha 3 of Update 90 of Hot Dogs, Horseshoes, and Hand Grenades. We're going to start off as always with a quick sound check. Make sure speakers aren't up too high. Wonderful. So what have we got for you this week? Well, we've got something extra special. Anyone who's been paying attention on the subreddit knows what I'm talking about. But before we dive into that, let's take a look at a couple small things that were added in this alpha. One, after long request, is that the ammo panel no longer just spawns around up here when you spawn it. It now, let's see here, boop, 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 spawns it into this handy-dandy little tray. So hopefully that should make this less enraging for you to use. Sorry that it took me so long to do that. Also, still working on the paper target system. I don't have categories working on this panel yet, but I wanted to pop in 3 other targets that were just finished by Cinecat. We've got 3 of what will actually be 4 different types of IPSC regulation targets. We've got the silhouette that already shows up in several other scenes. We've got the rifle style target here. And we have got the standard plate, which, as you can see, is a little small. Let's shoot at that. Obviously not too hard at 3 meters. So there you have it. I have also tuned the sort of strong damage that is on the various profiles. I've knocked it down about 30%. Please test it with various machine guns and see if it feels better than before and results in sort of awkward situations where a chunk of the target is hanging when it shouldn't. And if it's still not right, I will continue to tweak it. So, let's jump over to the proving ground and get to the exciting stuff for this week. So, we are over in the proving grounds, and as you can see, I have just a huge selection of firearms laid out in front of me, and that's because this week ended up being, in a very impromptu way, Bipod week. What do I mean by that? Well, anyone who has fired a bipod weapon in H3 knows that they don't feel great. I had a sort of a series of ideas on top of each other to try to make it possible to shoot really long range, but they were futzy, and I ended up developing sort of like this weird sort of like vibration that would occur because of the math I was using, so I had to filter it a ton. Anyway, no one likes bipods in the game, so I have tried to fix that, and so have recoded the system from scratch. So let's start out. Let's grab ourselves a 249 here. Let's wander over here. Let's spawn ourselves some Sosigs. And what I'm going to do, because I'm just standing here, is that... Splody beans. I'm going to actually use a locked platform here so that I can bipod at an arbitrary height. So yeah, so let's pop this on, and let's see what's different about this new system, as there's a couple changes. Pop that out. Yeah, this is going to be a good height. So the first thing to notice is that while they magnet to surfaces still, I no longer restrict your sort of roll rotation of the firearm. And in fact, this is the way that you can actually quick detach any gun from a surface that it's bipoded on. What I'm actually going to do to make it more evident where my hands are is I'm going to make my controller geo visible. That was really funny how I ended up pulling that panel up without forgetting that I was using it as a table. So, as you can see, my hand is here. It has a little bit of freedom relative to the gun, and that's the filtering that is being done. I'm going to actually grab an optic so that it's a little more obvious how stable this can be. Remember to use my left eye because that's hard-coded into the app. So as you can see here, with one hand in the bipod, it's really easy to keep this super stable while still being able to very rapidly move it between targets, as well as make really small adjustments, like so. And as you can see, we actually get a little bit of sliding with the bipod, because you can freely move it forward and back. So you can actually use this with one hand to very quickly sort of reposition the bipod for various etc. Thank you, volunteers. Volunteers in air quotes. Other changes is that now when you grab it by the foregrip, it no longer collapses the bipod, which allows you to immediately set it back down to be able to quickly reposition it, like so. And of course, as I said, you can just twist it to remove it from a panel and reposition like so. So hopefully that makes that immediately better to use. As you can see, the tines don't perfectly match the ground. Privilege has been made to making the movement of the gun really, really smooth and filtered and stable, at the cost of sort of visual accuracy of the tines being exactly in the floor, as I think usability in this case is way more important, and because this is a weightless object in a simulation, this can't actually press back on my hands. So certain sacrifices have to be made, and not just for our volunteer SOSIGs here. So you might ask, how does this work with our, say, a scoped weapon, like a bipoded rifle? Well, let's grab ourselves one. Let's grab the SV98, which, as you can see, now actually has its proper attached bipod. This actually was given to me with the model, but I think I just was not in the mood to fight with the bipod system on the day I implemented this rifle, and then forgot about it. So let's talk about bolt actions, because I've made another change with this, which is that, as many of you know, just because of the fact that grabbing the primary grip of any object has to align that object with your grip, it is currently impossible to release the grip on a gun and then grab it again and have it not move at all, which is sort of the cornerstone of using a scoped bipoded rifle correctly. You know, when someone in real life is sort of racking a bolt action after firing, they're sort of coming down here, they're coming back like this, and then they're grabbing the handle without jerking the rifle to the side. Because this isn't a physical object, that's impossible to do in VR. And so I have come up with another sort of corded extra control for this. I know this will probably be a little controversial, but what I wanted to do was come up with a way for you to operate the bolt that was not just a button press, but allowed you to keep your primary hand on the rifle, functioning in a bipoded form without having to, like, fire offhand like this. And so the control schema for this, if we come over here, also just notice how wonderfully stable that is. Whap! Is that I can, and this is only when I'm grabbing the fore or it's bipoded, I can touch my touchpad on the right quadrant and then make a counterclockwise motion and then make a clockwise motion. No clicking is involved in this, and this works just as well with a joystick as it does with a touchpad. You're literally opening it and shutting it with your clockwise and counterclockwise movement. So you still have to be steady with your hand while doing it to not move. So it's still a precision movement, and so it's still really in the spirit of the way that H3 tries to represent motions with at least an equivalent abstracted motion that requires practice and subtlety, while still making it possible to keep your sight picture intact while racking it. So, and this does not, I can still quick bolt this by clicking right on the touchpad, and it's being a pain. I spoke too soon. I have broken it! Huh, fascinating. Well, we will find out how I broke it. It wouldn't be a devlog if Anton didn't discover something was broken partway through doing it. So, anywho, another feature that was added this week, this is still experimental, is basically a system for what's called bracing. In real life, bracing simply means if I'm holding this, rifle here, I could brace the fore of it up against this wall to get some stability out of it, almost like a second stock point. Now, in a physics engine, this is generally a bad idea because continuous collisions that press over each other tend to vibrate a lot, which is the opposite of stability. And so I have added in a system, still with my controllers visible, so you can see how this works, where you can affect using the trigger on your forward hand. By holding it, you can, when your palm is within about 0.1 meters, so a couple inches, like 4 or 5 inches of this, of any environment piece, i.e. if it stops your player rig, if you're running into it, it's an environment piece. You can brace on it by holding that trigger, and now as you can see here, because I have my trigger held, this is now rotating not relative to my hand, but relative to the place my palm was at when I held the trigger. Almost think of it sort of as like impromptu bipoding against the environment without a bipod. So, but if I move my hand too far away from that point, the weapon will sort of snap off of it. And you can keep the trigger held to sort of slap the weapon into position for a piece of the environment, get your stability, fire, and then just remove it. So you can come up, snap. Obviously that was too close to even need something like that. Yeah, so we're on this side of the wall, stepping over my cable. So you come up here, brace, etc. Sorry for the hiccups, just got too many things in the scene, plus recording, plus quality settings, etc. Whap. Same thing as before, I'm going to hold the trigger, pull this into here. Notice how the rifle is stopping there. I'm now braced.
Finally, a day off.
And so yeah, so this system essentially, you're still using your sort of forward hand, almost as though you've got several fingers on the rifle and several fingers pressing up on the environment object, but allows you to get that sort of nice stabilization. In this environment, it doesn't really matter. Like it's easy enough to free fire like this at this range, but in contexts where you're at firing at 50 or 100 or 150 meters, this is going to help quite a bit. And so you can think of a lot of these improvements being about trying to lay down systems to make combat more viable when I eventually add a large open outdoor take and hold level. Wonderful. And then the last big thing this week, and this is definitely one of those crosses fingers, this doesn't have a bunch of edge cases, where it breaks, is that I have completed the first successful attachable bipod for this system. Only made possible because of the total rewrite of the bipod system and a lot of messed up math and a lot of luck. Anywho, let's grab that. Let's grab that. Cool. So we can come over here with our G36 compact. We can click this. Pop on, oops, the mag got in the way. Okay, so here's a situation. Bipod too short for mag. What do? Well, you can grab this and then click left or right on your touchpad or joystick to make this cycle through its length. So I can make this much longer. There we go. Wonderful. Blap, blap, blap. There we go.
No hard feelings.
Good to know, buddy. So there you have it. And This can, so there's only one real restriction with this, which is you can only have one bipod per weapon. I have gone out of my way, however, to allow you to do some breathtakingly stupid things with this. So if you take the axis shift here and put this on sideways, like so, let's make that nice and long. You can, in fact, bipod your gun sideways or upside down. Bipods are supposed to make it more accurate, not less.
Coordination.
Terrible. As you can see, a bipod placed too close to the grip forward and back makes this a significantly less stable situation to work with. But when in doubt, solve your problems with a rail adapter. There we go. Perfect. Whap. Ah, there we go. That's nice and stable.
Oh, well, that's well.
Oh, so gloriously stupid. So, I hope you have fun playing with this and probably breaking it in a bunch of ways. This is very much a like player beware. There will be ways that you can connect this that will completely break the gun, possibly make it impossible to pick up. Like if you put it behind the grip, don't come complaining to me. I will not fix every corner case for this. So, play stupid games, you'll get stupid prizes. And because I know someone will ask this, if you need to find the attachable bipod in the item spawner, the foregrip category has been renamed grip bipod, and that's because the way I coded this stupid thing like 2 years ago is that I can only have 10 subcategories in a category, so it has to get stuffed in there. That's something I'll solve when I eventually rebuild this darn thing. Anyway, let's jump out of VR. Yo! So, out of VR, what else is in this update? Because of the fact that I've added that attachable bipod, the two firearms that were in the game that already had like a sort of permanently mounted Picatinny bipod, which were the P762 and the 550, have had their bipod removed because you can now attach it if you wanted it. Let's see here. Yeah, AWM now has an undermounted rail, so you can bipod it. I had to tweak and sort of retest and verify the bipods on all the existing weapons that have bipods on them. It's in the changelog. That was tedious. Fixed a couple things involving rail alignment and lighting on the H416. There was also what appeared to be a scaling issue with the 416, but it actually wasn't. It was like an offset pivot scaling issue with the Stanag magazines in the game that I somehow never caught, probably because the magwell was thick enough on the other Stanag compatible rifles, and it's just a little bit thinner on the 416. So the 520 and 30 round Stanag mags are actually symmetrical now, side to side. Let's see, and some scoring issues were fixed with the black diamond target in the indoor range. So yeah, so that's what I've got for you folks this week. I hope you enjoy the attachable bipods, and please try them out in a bunch of different contexts. I honestly think that the Kappa Coliseum is probably a great sort of environment to try that out, because the fact that there is so much environment cover in it. One thing to be aware of with bipods is because of the fact that you can push them forward and back, and they now actually have still have recoil when you're firing them. Still dampened, but there is recoil. If you are bipoding on a fairly small surface, front to back, you can slip the gun accidentally off the front or back of it. So having a little more space to work with is preferable for that. And obviously it's something I'm going to be thinking a lot about when I design the sort of outdoor take and hold level, ensuring that there are lots of places that are at sort of like a decent range of heights, assuming someone is standing or slightly crouching, to be able to bipod at a good height and have a nice surface to work with. So yeah, so that just about does it, and I hope you have fun. Try not to break things too much, and I'll see you folks all next week. Peace.